Hello, my name is Vigil. This is my stream journal. The date is 5/1/2022. The time is 12:11. I start my program today, or tomorrow, or the next day, called ALIS, which is Latin for wings. It's a lifetime training program, essentially, that I want to develop over the next 20 years. I've written some about it. I broke it down into mind, body, spirit. For training the mind, you have knowledge core, or KC, all the basics all the different STEM fields, philosophies, and everything else you can read in a book. And then there's spectra, or specialized training, which is niche training that you take to the nth degree, so you can develop various skill sets and whatnot. And then there's body, which is agility, endurance, stamina, strength, and ability, like parkour training, Krav Maga, whatever it's called, that they're special forces hand-to-hand combat, parkour, free running, and various other skill sets that are hand-eye coordination, close quarters combat techniques. And then from there I go on to spirit, and spirit to me is your ethos, willpower, free will, essentially all the information components that are non-tangible. So the ALIS program, it's a lifetime training program. It's really more of an order, a community. I don't have anyone else in it yet but me, but I'm just starting it in 2 days. I hope within 3 months I'll see a positive effect. The problem I have is that there's something inside of me, specifically in my brain attached to my distress center, that is fucking with my belief system and thoughts using a slight amount of distress that's just enough to fuck with the neuronal learning. No one will acknowledge this, of course, but it screws with my ability to believe what I believe in and think and read without extreme coercion. They put it in me before the fire, because they framed me for the fire so they could rob me in this re-education cage, which no one will acknowledge is reality, because all the punk rockers are convinced they have to persecute people to maintain their stock options. But I'll be continuing this video journal. It'll be sporadic. Some of the videos will be just nonsense, me rambling. Some of them might be good. It's a training program, and so I have a list of books that I want to read. I have a lot of books. The problem is every time I go to read, my distress jumps up a whole bunch artificially, making it nearly impossible to continue reading or even learning and comprehending what I'm reading. What else is there? Half the population is neurolaced without a security system or even aware that they're being remote controlled. What else? I keep writing letters to the future, hoping they'll respond. I'm doing increments of 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 100,000 years, 1,000,000, 10 million, 100 million, a billion. And the hope is that I can get futuristic training so I can learn the end state of the STEM fields, and I can learn what they need and at what time they need it, so I can develop resource packages, develop technology ahead of time, and develop strategy based on the tactics of the technology in the environment they're operating in. I consider myself a forward moving, I don't know if the term is operator. If there isn't a community in the future to work with, I'll create it now, and then I'll work with it in the future. Like a network, which is a hyper-intelligence collective that spans the multiverse, that is alinear, interdimensional, and across multiple billions of galaxies, all operating independently as part of a republic of republics. Or Aeon, which is my own community, and a limited democratic senate, limited citizenship with a monarchy. The reason I chose this model was because my small civilization that is branching off from the root, which is part of the networks, which means we operate under network ideals, which is the apotheosis of ethos, liberty, and love for all sentient and free will beings. The reason I chose a monarch is because it's either a temporary thing, like Aeon is like I don't know. It's the model of the first Greek city-states that I chose. I chose a limited republic, and we're not going to force anyone to live in our territory, but we're not going to give our territory's rights, or like our right of self-determination, up so we can please this false glittering generality that democracy has attained. And yeah, so I would love to be reading right now. I can't because there's literally an electrical current being hit. My brain's being hit with an electrical current, supposedly in my delusional belief systems. But it's just a graded weight on a parasitic function on a hill climbing algorithm. But what I'm concerned of, though, is that they turned it on and off based upon specific thoughts, making my soul completely irrelevant to free will. Like, there's no free will if there's an electrode that carefully monitors and edits out your own thoughts by an intelligent designer who maliciously framed you for crimes so they could rob you. I'm pretty upset about it, if you can't tell. Pithy. So yeah, network is a whole lot of different independent communities and governments working together. Aeon, though, which is my own society, I maintain strict order over it because it's not supposed to be a society that's imperialistic. It's not a society that's supposed to spread to other communities. It's a small group of people who want complete self-determination and self-rule. The only way we can get that is by sovereignty of our own nation. And essentially, I thought that our community of Aeon would be able to be the leading cutting edge of the metacube, which is the pentagon of the network, or the DoD of the network, and really formulate and operate on the MulSpatCom, or the Multiverse Space-Time Command. I did choose monarchy, not dictatorship or socialist tyranny. Like, we'll have a regulated free market, decentralized capitalist society, and our Senate will be mostly in control of things. Essentially, but the Senate will be a limited democratic republic, which means that only people who we choose to let into our society will be able to influence it. And that's more freedom, really. Like, when you have two nations living under the same house or the same government, and it's nearly split, or even if it's not, if there's a minority and a majority, in a full democracy, that minority always gets pushed around. And like, it's better to have two independent governments and two nations that are completely separate from each other, rather than one nation overly controlling the other nation, like which we see in America. You know, like, we're no longer a melting pot, we're now a psychometric, hateful society, man. And like, half this country doesn't even believe our president is our president. That's foundational cracking of democracy. And like, the reason I chose monarchy, I guess, is because when I die, either a lineage will be set up, or my civilization will cease to exist. So it's really more of like, I don't know. We have such a distaste for monarchy in our society that our military is willing to torture people who try to profess it. And like, the reality, though, is that the worst dictatorships in the world came to power because of democracy. Like, and we see it occurring now in America. Like, I'm not free, and I've never been free because a democracy oligarch community decided to throw my life away for money. But yeah, so the sovereignty of my nation that's emerging is extremely important to me. I'd die for it, essentially. And like, the community that keeps switching sides because the stupid intelligence agencies only give them half the story, or pay them off, or threaten to do to them what they've done to me. You know, like, oh, I don't know. It's really dumb to me, and a lot of this is you have to be in the know to understand a lot of what I'm saying, context, references, and shit like that. So I know I'm being obscure and vague. But those who are in the know know, and and I don't know. Regarding my social scene, I'm not punk rock. I think punk rock sold out a long time ago. I like the music. I think it's poppy, but like people are singing it never did anything they were talking about doing, ever. You know, they were just agitprop for an imaginary revolution that never occurred. And now they like rise or against me says they set their rifle sights on me because I didn't bow down to their false ideology. Anarchy creates kings. It's in my writings. Like when you have an anarchist environment or a society lawless without rules or structured organizations like government, you end up with a king every single time. Like a power vacuum arises in the anarchy, and anarchy can only contain its or only like continue itself if you actively obey certain laws and rules, which defeats the logic of anarchy. And so what these laws and rules are is that you can't force your will onto another person, and like you can't organize and you can't do any of this stuff, and like in order to maintain that you have to follow rules in order to maintain the rulelessness. But like, well, that's not what happens. What happens is you have a charismatic leader or a strong man who's either ability proficient in like violence or is charismatic, and he rises to power with other followers, and then you end up with a gang, or that turns into a monarchy or an aristocracy. And like anarchy always self-destructs. It's like communism. It's a failed ideology. Like it's cool for a while when you live in a fascist nation to see anarchy for a while, but it never continues itself indefinitely. It always self-defeats because the natural state of man is to organize and follow or lead. And so like communism is the idea that like capitalism is horrid, creates wealth disparity, and like just destroys society with classes that are based upon economics. So you form a dictatorship of the proletariat, destroy all of society's classes with violence and shit like that, and police state, and then the state withers away into anarchy, or classless, ruleless society, which is the end state of communism. And then from there, you start to have people trade goods, and then they realize it's easier to trade goods with a standard medium, so they form a capitalist society, and then from there, it reboots, and the whole cycle just is endless. It's just the same, like socialist communism to anarchy, to free market capitalism, kings, monarchy, aristocracy, oligarchs, tyranny, mobocracy, and like it always just revolves. And like so I incorporate that into my designs for the network, but like it's just dumb. There's no logic behind it, and they're singing songs now for money and popularity, switching sides constantly, because it's easier that way. If you never take a stand for anything, then you'll never fall. And like anyways, so I hope to do these video journals more often. I don't know what I always want to say in them. Sometimes they might be entertaining, sometimes not. I understand that my face isn't the best looking and my voice and stuff like that is off tuned. But yeah. So yeah, I have the delusional belief that there's an electrode in me altering my pathways and shit. And it's just a remnant of what delusions I used to have. It's not like the government is allowed or can permit itself to put neurolaces and electrodes in people, frame them for crimes and stuff, to break their will for democracy. Democracy. So, anyways. A-list begins in 3 days. And it's lifelong. It's gonna be sweet.